You could actually say that maybe gaming is the reason that Octoprint exists, because when I had the printer sitting here tethered to my PC, I couldn't game anymore on it because it was busy controlling the printer. So I had to free up my PC again in order to be able to game. So I wrote Octoprint.
My name is Lance McCarthy. I am the manager of technical support for Progress Developer Tools in the United States.
My name is Gina Häußge, and I'm the main developer and creator of a small little open source software called Octoprint.
I am the manager of technical support. I also have a side software company that I do my consulting with and all of my Windows Store apps.
I am actually a full-time open source software developer, and my main project is Octoprint, which is like a web interface for the 3D printers, like a print server or maybe a bit of a baby monitor as well. Full-time open source I've now been doing since 2014, at first only with a single sponsor, and since 2016 now it's been fully crowdfunded by the community. Got started at a really young age, so that must have been now something like 30 years ago actually, because when I was 6 or 7, something like this, my parents got the first computer. The first thing I of course wanted to do was play with this thing, but my dad was all no, this is a tool, this is not a toy. And around age 12 or so I learned that there is actually a job called software engineer. Around late 2012 I got myself my first 3D printer and had it sitting here in my office and producing noises and fumes and all that while it was printing, and that was annoying. So I figured I need to solve that, put it on GitHub, and suddenly everyone was all over it and it just exploded on me, and I need to find a solution to do this full time because it's not going to work out as a pet project anymore. Started doing crowdfunding, and this is where I'm at now.
We didn't really have a computer science program. There was no like official way to do it. You had to take like random math classes and whatnot. I kind of drifted away from it at the time. I was more interested in the electronic stuff. So I ended up as a forensic counselor, someone that helps you in court. Basically, I try to make society better, get people the help they need. But I'm still a nerd. Right. So what did I do on my weekends and my spare time? We had this thing called Windows Phone Mobile. The modding community, you could go and you can get custom ROMs for Windows mobile device. This is back when Android was horrible. iPhone had just come out, didn't even have like an app store yet. I got my hands on the very first Windows Phone SDK. This is before Windows Phone was even released. I had spent the year learning how to code before that. So when Windows Phone 7 first came out, I had one of the first apps in the store. I've been doing this. I got involved with the community. After getting better at this, other people recognized it. I made friendships and I made these friends, and they was like, hey, there's a job opening here for a company called Telerik. You actually use their controls in your app. And I'm like, wait a second, I can work for the company for the thing that I love doing? Sign me up. I'm loving the spectrum of mixed reality. And I think it is eventually the future of personal computing, or at least personal mobile computing, where you don't have to stare at this metal brick in your hand all day. And you combined with the range of what different mixed reality technologies are, going from VR to AR, combine that with some general AI, we will have truly ubiquitous computing that is seamless with our lives. Being able to play with my HoloLens and create these things and write code that turns into some dragon or something in real life in front of me, I think is pretty cool. So that's exciting.
I would agree there, actually. That's also something that excites me. And I say that as someone suffering from simulation sickness. So something like virtual reality is completely off limits for me. But I think augmented reality could actually work because I still have this, I would still be grounded in reality. My brain would not be completely all over the place like, oh my God, we've been poisoned.
So one of the best parts about being a developer is the community itself. I have not seen or been exposed to any other industry that has the same type of passion and caring for each other, that shares their knowledge so openly.
Kind of knowledge and sharing is actually, I think, what also drew me into open source, because while I was still studying and all that, I also already looked around the net, dug into some open source software, and just being able to learn from that also boosted my own skills. And also speaking about community in general, this is also something that absolutely amazes me about Octoprint, because in 2015, I launched a plugin system for Octoprint so that other people can build plugins for it. And since then everything just has so grown and flourished, and there's now this whole ecosystem and plugin developers with whom I've become friends as well. And it's just amazing how something like this can just grow and give back so much.
Yeah, I would definitely not be where I am today if it weren't for the community.
Also because, a lot of people who use Octoprint have no idea that it's done by me. So I'm still also trying to tell people, hey, there are many like me who happen to not be male. And some visibility in that regard is also quite necessary, I have the feeling. For the pandemic, I used to go to conferences here and there. Now I try to attend them in virtually. Try to do usually more the local ones. Now I can actually reach for the bigger but more remote ones, thanks to Corona. I mean, it can also have some advantages, right?
At a convention, you have rows of chairs, and you're up on the stage, and you present your thing, and maybe 4 or 5 people will come up to you afterwards and ask some questions. Now, with the remote events, and you have this eye-to-eye kind of contact, and you have live chat, there's more of a connection, I believe, that you get with a certain type of audience members who would not have approached you at a live event. But ultimately, I stay connected by always ask me a question on Twitter. You can always open an issue on GitHub. There's no reason why I would not answer your question.
So in general, what I try to do is I try to help in public. So in places where stuff is discoverable, can be found by search engines, can be found by people using the search function and all that. When I help one person with this specific problem, I hopefully also help pretty much everyone else with that problem, at least as long as they search.
Gina, where do you see 3D printing, where do you see that trend going?
For a while, a lot of people were talking about a 3D printer will be in every living room and all that. And I personally do not buy into that. We certainly do have a kind of tool there that will enable a lot of interesting applications in the future. What I really hope will happen in the long term is that, so right now 3D printers, like you can buy them for the consumer market, there are possibilities to make all of this a bit more user-friendly and the experience a bit more streamlined. So Lance, what is your favorite Microsoft build memory?
So I've been to all of the builds. I missed one. As an attendee in Build 2015, me and a couple of my friends, we won the hackathon. And that was a nice prize, like $5,000 in cash and a bunch of other cool little stuff. Like, it was a significant win, but not because of the stuff, but because it was Microsoft build, right? It's like the epitome of hackathons. But basically, we built this thing. I 3D printed an Apple logo. I put a pressure sensor under it. The pressure sensor went to a Raspberry Pi running Windows IoT that pulled and kept track of this pressure sensor, which then got tracked in a leaderboard on Windows 10 app. You hit the Apple logo as hard as you can. And the line to that thing was so big. Gina, what is the best piece of advice that someone has ever given you?
That would actually be from a former colleague when I was employed at the university, who told me either love it, take it, or leave it. If you find yourself in a situation, any situation, you should be either comfortable with it, you should be able to take it, or you should leave this kind of situation.
Someone once explained to me that it's okay to say, I don't know. And that is because it's better to say, I don't know, and then realize you have a missing piece of knowledge than it is to fake it or pretend. And throughout that has gotten better as my career has gone on more. The more I know, the more I realize how much I don't know.
As a whole, in the dev, as the whole community, in the dev community overall, we just need to try to normalize it all together, that it is okay to not know everything as long as you're ready to learn.
I'm going to buck the question again, and I don't think there is one person. So normally a dev would say somebody like Scott Hanselman or Swift on security, but I also want to give visibility to the people that aren't that famous, more visibility for women in coding and underrepresented communities in general. Follow hashtags in an easy to follow way, because you start to see names and people that you would not normally have been exposed to. So you break out of your little bubble, and it's helped me tremendously.
I was actually going to say Scott Hanselman. If you're not following him already, that is. So I had the opportunity to actually be a guest on his podcast a couple of years ago about Octoprint. And that was, before that, I gotta admit, he was completely under my radar. So I wasn't aware of who he was and what he does and all that. Not just for the very technical content that he shares, which is also amazing to learn, but he's just like this completely wholesome and calm human that I look up to and is a joy to follow, because even if he shares stuff about things that I had absolutely no idea about, it's still always something that broadens my horizon.
The thing about Scott is he uses his platform to empower and encourage people, and that is outside of tech. He's just a good human being in that way. So Gina, it was a pleasure speaking to you today. I always love meeting new people in the developer community. It's a huge pleasure and honor for me. So thank you for joining us today.
It was also a really pleasure to be chatting with you today here, and I learned a lot in the process. And yeah, well, I hope we can keep in touch. Thank you.